So let's go ahead and call to order this work session for the Town of Port Royal Board of Architectural Review for September 12th, 2017. So we have a current application. It's a demolition permit for the afternoon, correct?
Yes.
And so I guess we're committed to voting on it in the actual session at 7 o'clock.
That's what we said.
Okay.
And, we postponed it August 22nd.
All right. And we decided not to do the closed, so that's fine.
I just passed out a handout that Julie had brought in. Just a letter from the development partner.
I guess we can start with, a discussion real quick about the addendum that's been floating around, and if we want to include that in the.
Is there change other than the one we talked about at the end?
Yeah, but are we going to take a vote on including this?
You already have.
Oh,
Yeah,
we have?
we already did
Yeah,
that.
we took a vote.
So
It's a blur, I'm sorry.
my suggestion is whatever your decision is, based
Oh.
on something from this.
And we've been postponing, okay, all right, never mind. Sorry. All right, so then that is included. All right, well, let's discuss. We've kind of gone to our own corners for 2 weeks.
Do you want to discuss the application in the context of this? Let me just work down the list.
I would like to just talk a little bit and then do it.
Okay.
Point by point. Does anyone object to that?
Nope.
Well, can I start?
Sure.
My stuff is a mess, but I've been thinking about this a lot. And this is the premier corner for not only the historic district, I think, but for the whole town. And it's unfortunate that it's not looked the way it should for a long time. But spending time going into who did or didn't do what when is counterproductive. Maybe it gives you a feeling of moral superiority, but it does not really get us any further down the road. What we have is what we have. We have to move forward from there. Looking at, I'm greatly dismayed to find that the building is in such bad shape. I think that it's human nature that when somebody else thinks, when you think that somebody else is handling something, you don't really question it. And then all of a sudden we're hit in the face with the fact that people are saying it's in such bad shape that it needs to be torn down. I wish that, I personally would have stepped up and tried to do something, at least as a citizen, if there was a grassroots or even a request from the EDA to help save the afternoon if they were having trouble finding a taker or coming up with a plan or anything. I'm not sure if it would have worked, but I just feel that I think if people had known that there would have been a response, because although a lot of people are upset at the way it's been, I think there's still a great affection, and it is very, very prominent. I know we're not really voting on this now, and this may be a moot point, but some of the plans I had hesitations about that were submitted and the design, but I think that may be not necessarily needed to be talked about.
I'd like to avoid
Yeah,
the proposed plan, I guess.
I just would like to say that, just having been spending a lot of time thinking about it, I think that this corner maybe not necessarily just retail, but this corner could be such a draw for the town and for the historic district. There's a limited amount of space there, but you want something that's eye-catching. And just a building, even a pretty historic building, isn't necessarily what maybe we want. I'd like to, and this is sort of out of the purview of the BAR, I'm just throwing it out there, like to see about maybe getting some sculpture or whatever, something to eye-catch. There's a great program, I think CBS did it on Cairo, Illinois, and how it was a small town that was dying that brought in sculptures. I think that if we teamed with a couple set pieces, rotating pieces that could maybe be switched out from local artists, including down the street, maybe including some in businesses, with something called like unexpected art, and people could go on an art. I mean, I think there's things that we could do that are outside the box that would be not only preserving the historic building, but also bringing in modern touches.
I think we're all gonna,
Yeah,
I really have a feeling, a feeling right now that I think all of us are coming to a very similar conclusion, but from a very different place. Nancy, I haven't heard much,
No, I could,
haven't heard
you know, I kept saying to my husband, I can't know how to vote. I can't say anything with a lot of confidence in what the decision I've made. I guess I keep looking back at this picture of the afternoon.
Well, that was
when-
when it was a Mountain View Hotel.
And thinking, if there's so much bad stuff in that building now, is that the answer, to let it be taken down? And I could say that if I could have someone sign something that said it will be just like this.
it's hard.
That's kind of all that I've ended up with.
I mean, what we're looking at is a classic Italianate structure. And if you look down Main Street, probably every third building is Italianate. The two buildings, I found an old photograph that were taken down to put this building up, were both Italianate. And so I think that although no town is static, they're not just one era. The Italianate is very important to when this historic district and this Main Street was being developed. You've got, the wonderful colonial revival courthouse. You've got the Gothic revival church across the street. And so we really need to be very careful as to either what stays here or what goes here. And I just don't, I'm not sure, and this isn't casting aspersions on anyone, that all that could be done as far as tax credits and that sort of thing have been done. I sort of liken it to submitting a medical claim to your insurance. Sometimes
It gets denied the first time.
it's how you code it, it's how it's asked, it's how it's presented. And so I just don't feel 100% confident that everything's been done that could be done to try and preserve this building. Is it in terrible shape? Yes. Could it possibly be the outcome that it will have to be taken down? Yes. Are we at that point? I don't feel confident.
I was driving home this afternoon, and I was thinking to myself, and I was really, trying to take in, the public hearing told us a lot. It really felt like everyone's split into three categories. Tear it down, save it, and then if you must tear it down, do so respectfully. Like, everyone wanted a guarantee of something. And I'm really looking at the the folks that wanted to tear it down and why, and we kept hearing like eyesore and nothing's being done. And I feel like those people are just so desperate to look at anything other than plywood windows. And I'm like, the building is beautiful. The plywood is an eyesore. The roof falling off is an eyesore. And I'm like, nobody wants to look at plywood. So,
Well,
Yeah.
I'll chime in on that.
please, yes.
The Afton Inn is not the only eyesore we've got on Main Street. I mean,
Very true.
the whole downtown needs work. It's been slapped together in the 70s and 80s with cheap building materials. I think that someone came through Town Front Royal with T111 on the back of their truck and beige paint. Because there seems to be a large portion of the downtown that was wrapped in T111, masonite, and beige paint. So when we're in a position where we're actually being threatened, because we were threatened, we were also swore at.
Yes.
Passion is fantastic because what it is doing is it's opening up everyone's eyes and it's getting people involved in something that obviously has not been happening in, I don't know, I get anything from 50 to 60 years of it being empty. But I think on some of those I would have to call the whole glass house theory, or saying that, you know, if you are so successful and you've been doing so much and I'm the only one that knows, or we're the only people that know how to run a business on Main Street, maybe you should carefully look at your own building. And before you start telling us, or it just wasn't one person in particular, it was a group of folks. We need to take a step back and say, okay, well, you know, I think that that's fantastic, though the Afton Inn is boarded up. It's not the worst thing I've seen on Main Street. And I could point out a half a dozen areas, like the building that's right next to the building that I'm involved in. It is a alleyway. I mean, the building is right here. There's an alleyway that goes to one of the prominent parking spots in downtown, and everything's falling apart. So before we get hung up on the whole, oh, well, it's an eyesore, it's this, it's that, it's other, I think more importantly, we should start talking about the qualifications of the firm that's proposing the work. I don't know, I'm new, and I've got a statement that I'll read once everybody's here, but you know, I don't know the chain of command on that. I don't know who's had it. I don't care, because I'm not here to discuss any of that. But you know, there's the difference. I mean, I'm historic preservation work. I've worked in that field. I enjoy it. It's a reason why I moved here, and in 3 months I was on the bar. It's sort of a passion hobby for me, but we're just not. I don't have enough information to base tearing down what I would consider a keystone building downtown based on no numbers, no facts. I've got, and I went through and watched the videos, which is fantastic that we're on TV now, because I can go back and actually reference. Wait, did I say too many times? But we've asked very specific questions and they haven't been answered. The new listing of stuff that was sent over with the new package, the due diligence thing, I can't guarantee the due diligence was done because there's been no movement that I could see to get any sort of historic status put on the building based on any of the qualifications for that. The other portion of it is it goes into miles and miles of we have to replace the electric, we gotta replace the mechanical systems, and we can't associate a cost to that because of the historic building being the way it is.
I've heard that about several buildings.
Well, but here's the deal with
I'm not
that.
trying to narrow down.
If they're moving forward on this and they're going to try to tear it down, then in some place there is a plan set for this, someplace. And if their tradesmen can't look at an electrical detail on the electrical plan portion of it or the mechanical portion and come up with a figure based on all of the plans, then they shouldn't be the people in there working anyways.
Well, and that's why I had asked in one of the other meetings how long they had been working on this, because when I received a Google map with an overlay, my instinct professionally says there hasn't been much work put into this, because
Well, it's
I know what plans and schematic drawings look like, so I was thinking there hasn't been much planning.
And
There can't be, I mean, there's gotta be a paper trail.
we'll
There's
be,
gotta be. If someone's been working on something for 4 years, and it was on somebody's desk for 4 years, and at some point somebody said, okay, hey, we can't do anything with this, let's punt it because we need a win, or you go back and say, okay, well, were you qualified to make this decision? Were you qualified to not seek people that do this for a living or work in historic preservation?
you know, and you picked up on the fact that some of the numbers that were given were all over the place.
They're all over the place.
And I was looking at this at one point and suddenly realized that they've taken the sidewalk, so, you know, as part of this plan that they've submitted, there's no sidewalk here anymore. And then just looking at these are beautiful, but based on the size of the building and the number of apartments they're putting in, how would you
interior,
fit something, how would you
Which
fit
doesn't
something like
concern
that?
us.
And it, not that we're doing the interior, but to me, it speaks to,
It hasn't been
it
planned
hasn't
out.
been planned out. They're not really dealing with reality. And so if they're just tossing out stuff willy-nilly to get the answer they want, how do we know that, as you say, the due diligence on the doesn't need to be torn down is accurate?
We were
And I,
given other options too, because when we were discussing this, again, when we had started veering over into the new construction, we're like, if you don't like this, we'll change that. So material changes can have a huge cost impact, and we're instantly being told,
Not a
we'll
problem.
change everything.
but it's going to, they can't afford to keep the building and preserve the building because it's gonna cost too much.
Wait,
Based on figure from a company out of Iowa or Idaho or something to that effect.
yeah.
Which, when I asked him multiple times, he still couldn't come up with an answer that I was satisfied with. Reusing the boards, the floorboards, and reusing all the stuff that they're adding
It's interior.
cost. You know what, they're gonna build it from the inside out. If they do the foundation work that they have to do to save the foundation, they're gonna be building from the inside out. All that's gonna be new anyways. So even pointing out that you've gotta take nails out, you've gotta do this, all that stuff's gone.
And if they're saying they're going to incorporate as much as they can of the old stuff into the new, and yet they have this extremely ultra-modern design, you know, how, even if you could find pieces that hadn't been already gutted and tossed into half the building, how would they incorporate an antique newel post into this aesthetic?
They're not going to.
It
It'd be a
makes no
waste of
sense.
time.
And may I, on their website, I happened to look them up, I was just curious. It says they are a small Virginia architectural firm committed to doing modern work with a wide range of budgets. That's the second sentence, that is what they want potential clients to know about them. That's how they view themselves as contemporary architects.
Well-
And I'm not saying they haven't done any historic work, but that's not their focus.
Their portfolio shows one building that they did some historic work on, but it actually wasn't historic work, it was actually preservation work. Because they were preserving an original structure and going in from the inside and doing basically what we're talking about. They gutted the inside, they fixed up the brick, and then they moved on. On their website also, there's no pictures of anything historic other than this townhouse that they did. And if you go to their About Us page, they actually, again, they say we focus on new design as well as residential renovations, additions, and commercial projects. Now, on the flip side, Urban Development Partners, Michael, who I've been speaking to for the last couple of days, completely different spec. They're doing buildings in Winchester. They're also handling a pretty large project in Loudoun County. They're familiar with applying for the tax credits, which could be up to 20%.
And that's a fantastic transition real quick, because I also wanted
Do we want to, in
Michael.
case they forget to, they don't know.
Oh,
Michael
Michael.
Grabowski. He was
Grabowski.
at the public hearing,
He was the last speaker.
and
Yeah.
he had said something that really
He's
struck
the
a
one-
chord, and I had thought about this previously, where he said tearing this down will set a precedent.
Which
And
you
that's-
been concerned
That was one
about.
of our very, very first concerns, like,
Well,
if
you
someone
guys have
calls
just
it
mentioned
ugly, we tear it down.
And he's the one who said the historic tax credits do exist. He seemed to know what was out there and how you access
And he
it.
had
He
also
works within the
mentioned-
parameters of that.
He had also mentioned that if Front Royal, and I'm gonna speak to this group specifically, if we start allowing these buildings to be torn down, I don't want every application we send to Richmond to go into someone's trash pile because they're like, oh yeah, we know what they do with their historic building. I don't want that on.
Which
on
gets back,
us.
I actually had set aside, they had,
There's a lot of
And that's what
collateral,
happened.
There's a lot more people.
collateral impact, I believe.
I agree that you should be.
Cultural, financial, there's,
I think that that should in fact be a deep concern, that it's going to taint other projects. I was just looking, I had it, I lost it in my pile of papers. But in the original architectural survey they did in what, 92 or whatever that was, they list the Afton Inn as a premier anchoring architectural building.
and I believe it is from 1868,
Yeah.
1868 or 70, something
which
like
means
that.
next year
68.
it will turn 150 years old.
68.
Happy birthday. Do it, please.
Well, I don't like to refer to it as the afternoon.
Okay.
I would refer to it as the Mountain View Hotel. The afternoon does not have a very pretty history. I can think of many deaths caused by the activity in that place. When Rick brought that up about what's so warm and cuddly about that building, nothing. But in its previous incarnation as the Mountain View Hotel, then we had very, very good history on it. That was where all dignitaries stayed in town. Because no one drove in, right? No such thing as cars. They all rode the train in and short walk down the street. And that's, I can name dignitaries. That's where they had the dinner for the boys that came back in 12. They went down to the border to chase Pancho Villa around. And there's pictures of that too. But that's, the old hotel had good history. Once the afternoon came in, went downhill.
Okay.
And I'm not interested really in saving the afternoon, but the Mountain View Hotel, I am.
Have we,
And the Mountain View Hotel was what it looked like.
yeah, that's the one with the,
Yeah.
With the porches and the.
yeah.
Mhm.
I had the
That's
idea,
the Mountain
since
View.
you
Yeah.
can't have the porches on the end that they were originally on, and yet they still have that covered walkway. What would happen if you took the porches and moved it to the long side facing the street,
Facing Royal,
facing Royal? And actually then two of the apartments, or a couple of the apartments could have
They
a
have
little
balconies,
balcony. And it would, see, if you look at, let me find it, I'm sorry if I actually printed out what constitutes an Italianate style, some of the characteristics. Oftentimes brick, I think this one, porches is back here. And if you look, you look at the picture, you know I'm referring. Italianate porches were, had their size and their decoration were restrained compared to other Victorian styles, and often only one story. The most common type porch were columns with square posts. But if you look at the picture, you look at this set here, where you've got the original multi-tiered porch, and what it looks like even a few years ago, It does look kind of boxy because it's missing, it's like taking the eyebrows or something off something. It's the porches that make that. I mean, yes, if you are in the know and you look up, you can see the ends of the rafters up by, which is very Italianate, the little cupola and all like that. These are all very, very classic, strong Italianate features. But if you took something similar to that and put it on that side, not only would it be really attractive, make the building speak again of what it should be, but I think since you already have that covered walkway thing, it would just take up the same footprint. And like I said, you would actually add value by having some of the apartments to have balconies.
What was the reasoning?
It fell off. Actually, the story I heard is there was a Methodist minister, probably in a car very similar to that. It used to sort of almost stick out into the road, and that was before they even widened the road. Some old Methodist minister ran into it and knocked it down.
Yeah.
So it got taken out by the Lord.
And he's never been behind the wheel of a car before. They gave it to him. He was a circuit minister.
Oh, and they thought it'd be better if he could drive? Oh, no. So it's never been, and then of course they wanted to widen the road. So it can't go on that end. But what's to say that if somebody was preserving the building, it couldn't then be just swung around and that very prominent architectural detail be brought back. That would make a huge difference to that building. And like I said, add value. So I've been up in the middle of the night thinking things for way too long.
Yeah, and I want to be careful that we don't just sit here and redesign the building.
No, that was, but
And, critique the new proposal, because that's not what we're being asked to do, of course.
Yeah, keep in mind, this is just demolition application.
Yeah,
Just
this
the
is
demolition
demolition.
application. I guess a question I would have to the folks here, considering we are the Board of Architectural Review and we are the first line for the historic district, personal opinions aside, is there a sense of duty, I guess, that anyone's feeling about either saving or removing? Is anyone feeling like we have to do this, like I feel this way, and because I'm feeling a responsibility to not tear this down. Like, why are we here? I don't want to be the first in line saying, well, it's ugly, sorry. That's really how it's starting to feel to me. And I just don't want to be the first in line right now to.
Well, what it will do is, all politics aside, is if we vote against it, we've already been told they're going to council anyways.
and I've been on the board long
Yeah,
enough
so,
that
I
we
mean-
have been overridden a number of.
Yeah,
There was a
absolutely.
period of time.
The press that was on the building before we even had the first BAR package, there was already an ad campaign out there with everybody that would pick it up with the new pictures and this is what we're
Exactly.
doing
I
now.
don't think things were done in the right order.
No, they weren't. So my opinion is that the deal's already been made. And we're sort of, what we are is we're a last line of defense, but as we've been told so eloquently, and I'm up to like 4 times now, they're just gonna go to council anyways. So when that happens, what that will do is, depending on where this goes, is the building's been vacant for the last 50 years. So if the Board of Architectural Review decides that they're going to say, no, don't tear it down, we're gonna be the ones that chased away the developer, and now for the next 30 years, it's gonna be on us.
I've actually, it's about to finish up probably 10 years. And so I was actually around on the board when the gentleman who had it for so long and sat on it for so long, while it slowly sank, sent us a proposal And we looked at it very carefully, and we had a lot of questions and some concerns, but we had questions, and we wanted to ask them. But they had not sent a representative. There was nobody from the owner or anyone representing him there. So instead of voting, well, we don't think this is the right, we decided to table it until they could come before us and we could talk to them and find out what their thoughts were, why they, what were some of the materials they were going to be using. And so we tabled it as BAR and waited for them to come before us. Now, they had been to a couple of things, had gotten some answers they didn't like, and they did never come back. But we were willing to work for this. I just feel that, yes, I mean, no one's denying it's an eyesore right now as it stands. I think the question really is, has there been due diligence? And I am truly not casting aspersions. Nobody knows all the things that you go through when you're trying to get a project moved along. And so you can feel like you're being attacked. If you're on a committee or something, you can feel like you're being attacked for not doing enough by people who don't know. And I don't want to come across as that. But I just have deep concerns and questions. And like I said, who's to say that maybe if people knew that if somebody doesn't step up, if the community doesn't step up, I mean, there's been things like Save Our Gateway and all that were grassroots political actions that took it upon themselves to say, no, this is important to our community.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that this location and this building, but this location primarily, is so important to our town and our financial future. And no, I don't want to scare off development. I had some grave concerns about some of what they wanted to put there simply because I think they were trying to go into a saturated market, or it wasn't a good locale, like having the seating area out front with the hot blazing sun. I mean, that's all, I had concerns. So I feel like I do have a moral obligation to say, wait a minute, will this building maybe, perhaps, ultimately have to be torn down? I accept that, but I want there to be more time. I just feel like all of a sudden, we're being rushed. And I feel like the BAR is being really pushed. As you say, you've been told flat out, we don't care what you're going through the motions. We don't care what you choose. We know how to get what we want.
I think
And
it's
I'm not,
unfortunate.
personally,
Yeah.
if they can do that, I'm not gonna make it easy for them. I'm gonna do what I feel is right.
I think it's unfortunate that what Michael had just said, if, we say no and then, we chased off, the one developer. I have a really hard time with that too, because in this process, I've been approached by 2 people personally that said, oh yeah, I tried to buy the building and restore it. And I'm like, wow, so there's been interest that no one knows about.
Yeah.
And then
too.
now we have this letter
We
from
never finished.
urban development partners. So now that it's being brought to light that there have been interested parties, but things haven't been approved. I don't know what happened with those deals, but I feel like there's still interest there.
I don't know if we've finished explaining so that the camera people can know. This is a letter from a gentleman who did speak.
Oh,
He
yes,
has a
sorry.
long, apparently, history of doing preservation projects in places like Winchester and all. And he's interested in developing and preserving the inn.
Yeah.
He's willing to take it on.
The
And I
hotel,
haven't actually had a chance because we just got it.
Porches.
I deeply appreciate, this is a letter he wrote to the EDA. And he's saying things like, I deeply appreciate your review of our bid. So they are putting in a bid. And it is much more detailed. In these 2 pages, we have more actual information than in all the reams of stuff that we were presented with before. And so this is another reason. I don't think we should vote to put this building down if we have the potential for somebody who wants to preserve it. I think knowing, even if I didn't feel the way I already feel. Knowing this now, tonight, we got this tonight, we would be not doing our duty as the BAR to vote to demolish this building, knowing that there's somebody who has apparently a track record in preservation, who is interested and willing to take this building on. I think we would be derelict in our duty.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. Thank you. That,
I mean, if we look at it
that's
that
been my
way.
thoughts. Knowing that there's been bids and interested parties over the last few years, it makes it very hard to justify not trying to, preserve it. And then I keep going back to the Stanton conference, that the timing on that couldn't have been
Oh, yeah.
better.
And actually, I was hoping there was a gentleman who actually was the head of the BAR when I first joined it, who was going to try and make it, because
Yeah.
he didn't today. I just think that there perhaps, even if we didn't know about urban development partners, who sound like a godsend, they sound like Deus Ex Machinists. I just am not confident that everything has been tried to get as much other funding and sources to help preserve the building. And I'm willing as a citizen to try and, I'll help whatever I can, not as BAR, but just as an interested citizen. And I'd just like to have a little bit more time for there to be a little bit more, let's see what happens with this at the very least.
But I mean, I am assuming that the EDA has their own set of parameters to who they vet and whatnot too, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't
then,
know what the status is.
Yeah, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
I will,
Because it's their building.
They couldn't put up a for sale sign.
Well, it's their building, but then they passed along any maintenance,
To nobody.
no, to the town.
how do you take on a project when you yourself say, I did not have any budget to market it, and I was not going to be involved with the maintenance, nor was I going to push the person who supposedly was to do any maintenance? I mean, I'm puzzled by that. I don't understand that. And if they have, how did they choose the architectural firm that they chose?
There's a lot of unanswered questions about
Well,
how
it's- well-
that particular.
Well, the thing is,
contract to be done.
the EDA is about bringing
Economic.
economic growth, and they do a fantastic job with what they do. I mean, I've been on their website, I've talked to Jennifer, there's a lot of positive things going on. Now, was it handled correctly? I don't know. But at the end of the day, they're throwing down a permit to demolish with absolutely, the information that they gave us was contradicting. You had
And some of
one
it
this,
old.
one that. During the walkthrough, the gentleman referred to the building as saying in the last 2 years, it's gone downhill. And then, after someone mentioned something, and I don't remember what opened this up, then it was, the last 2 weeks have been, boom, the worst ever.
Of course.
So, they're a business, and their interest is to make money, and I'm on the line. After hearing everybody, truthfully, I am on the line. Because I do know what goes into fixing a building like that. And for personal reasons, it's in my best interest to have as many fantastic businesses in downtown as possible. because they have to, at least half of those people have to walk by my shop to get here. So, you know, but at the same time, the rhetoric used, the approach, the sort of backhanded excuses and misinformation, and again, just like what was stated in the last thing that Jeremy passed out this week, going into nails and, you know, build outs for a commercial kitchen. Well, if the commercial kitchen is going to be so expensive, then why aren't you charging that to the new person leasing it? A build-to-suit, which is what every other development company does. Why are they going to eat the cost of that?
Yeah, I had other ones. I mean, I have a degree in restaurant management. At least 80% of restaurants fail in the first 2 years.
90%.
90%. It's probably gone up now with the economy. Why would you A, insist that a part of the building be a restaurant? Why would you not only insist on that, you'd eat the cost, so you don't even know what sort of restaurant's going in. And then,
Well, if it's a good restaurant, they're gonna want gas.
Well, it's a pizza restaurant, is what
the
they
thing
were
is,
saying.
that was
Yeah.
part of my cards. We have at least 11 pizza places in town.
Melting
And
Pot's
as
got
far as-
the racket on that.
And as far as like a beer garden, there are 3 places. By the time they even knock this building down, there will be 3 places where you can sit and have beer within like a 5, and I'm being generous, 5-block radius. On top of which they have it, my house faces the same way. I live a couple blocks away from here. Trust me, when it's the afternoon sun, nobody is sitting on that side. Okay, so let's say they have a beer place out front, we let them have tables. What happens in the seasons when you don't sit outside? Do we just have tables there? What happens when they do put the tables there and then everyone's roasting, they can't use it, so they come back to us and say, oh, we need to put a big sunshade up or something? Why don't you just say, hey, if you want it to be retail, we'll have it retail. If you want a restaurant, talk to us, we'll figure something out. And this
I think that
big
just
months.
goes back to we were presented, for lack of better words, a weak plan.
Mhm. Yeah, whatever they want to do with it, I don't care. I mean, fix it up, bring something to the table, but don't look to me and say, well, it's going to cost me $100,000, $200,000 to put a kitchen in here. That's not my problem. Build a suit, done.
Well,
And then see if somebody comes in here. The economics of all of this and what they're going to do with it, that's not why I'm here.
Right.
But you've got a fantastic point as well. I mean,
and you see, I don't want to dictate to them, but just some knowledge that I have, I also want it to be successful. I want every business that we put in this town and on Main Street to be the most successful it could possibly be. So if I see that you're going into a saturated market, have you thought about that? You're
Well, we
setting
have
up.
historical data. How many applicants have we had before us that have tried to renovate for luxury apartments? Quite a few in the couple years, and you see how many are built.
Or how many are actually luxury, or it's still the same
They're
sort of
not there
people?
yet, and we've
Yeah.
had plenty of proposals, so we have historical knowledge of
there,
what the outcome of that looks like already.
we're looking at 5 to 10 years for our downtown to be what it is, Winchester, and that's if it's planned by the powers that be to do their job. This is not going to happen overnight by any stretch of the imagination. And while we have the Barnharts who are putting a lot of money investing into the community, we also have a few other folks who are doing the same thing. The truth of the matter is, once everything starts rolling, luxury apartments may be a thing.
Very
But
true.
But
Could be.
before any of that happens, all the low-income apartments that are being filled by people that leave their trash on the street because they're too lazy to walk out back, until that's gone, again, going back to a more realistic 10-year plan, but again, the finances of it, I mean, they're in the business to make money, which all of us are. But at the same time, there's no information. There's been no information. And if there is information, it's been contradictory to what they originally said. But whatever their mixed use or whatever that is. Yeah.
It's not really why we're
Yeah,
here.
but my only point to that is mixed use, then you know what, then you take, if you've got someone that's gonna lease the space, kinda like the Barnharts have with the folks brewing beer, the people brewing beer are coming up with a considerable amount of money to put their facility in that space. The barn, you know, and that's what it is. Don't come to me and ask me to demo a building based on the fact that it's gonna cost, oh my God, so much more money to put a kitchen in here. Not my problem. Stub it out. All you need is a sewer line, a couple gas lines. Then the restaurant that comes in here, they decide whether it's viable to put a brick oven in there or not.
And you see, that's another thing, is when we put a restaurant in, it's really hard to reuse that space. And particularly if you put what they were talking about, one with the brick oven with a great big thing, that is our bailiwick, because that is
That's
the
another
architectural
feature on the front of the
feature
building, yes.
Yeah.
that is not,
And I'm looking at this particular corner and I see award-winning preservation literally across the street. And then on the other side, you've got this beautiful church and, I mean, it's gorgeous and it's
it's gorgeous little
architecture.
clerk's building and all.
And if you stand in the alleyway between this building and the hotel, and you look around, you see really stunning pieces of architecture that are being maintained and very well kept. I'm worried about the juxtaposition even
And,
of what could be there.
you know, people are concerned with, oh, it's gonna cost so much money to preserve it. I'd settle for, you know, Italianate features and 3 sides of brick. You know, what goes on in the inside except that it extends out.
Doesn't matter.
It's not something that we're concerned with.
Well, what did
Know
they say
that
here?
preservation of buildings is not the cheapest or the easiest, but is it worthwhile? Yes. I truly believe it is. And I think that there are a lot of towns, Stanton being one, Williamsburg, Old Town Alexandria. I mean, I grew up in Alexandria, and I remember when it was a dock area, when the
Yeah.
torpedo factory was,
I think
it was
the
you and the rats
location-
down there.
The location is really driving some of this, because if
It
it
is.
were tucked away somewhere else, it would be a little more convincing that maybe not, and you've got this here, no one can really see it. But that's
This is
such
the
a prominent
pre-
corner.
It's not such a, it is, I think,
The
it's
entry.
the premier location.
And that goes back to the block grant and looking at entry features. And that block grant is sitting on a foundation of historic preservation and facade improvement. And my thoughts keep circling right back to that. And I'm like, we have so much to lose
Well,
in grants and growth and preservation money. It makes me very nervous. So we drive away, like you were saying, you know, we get blamed for driving away one developer. I don't want to get blamed for driving away all of the tax credits that could have ever been.
well, most people don't understand what the tax credits are.
Yeah, and
And that's
I
the
don't.
thing. You know, it's basically, if I remember correctly, it's sometime 76, 78, the government came out and said, okay, well, we're gonna start, instead of doing all this new construction, we're gonna start giving incentives for people to keep the old structures. It's changed over a number of years, but again, it's why a firm that deals with this should be the primary motivation behind, okay, well, we've got some information, this is what we're going to give you, and then go from there. I mean, when I found the Front Royal Historic District application from 2002, which was, just bear with me a minute here. Okay, the application for historic status of the town of Front Royal, ID number 1120055, dated 12/14/02, submitted to the United States Department of Interior. The applicants Edna Johnston and Catherine Getting Smith. In their package, to actually gain historic status for the district, the Afton Inn, or actually the hotel, is listed prominently as one of the reasons why they should be granting us a historic district. I mean, and it goes on to say,
Highlighted.
yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, I've got that.
Okay.
That's in the application, and then it's listed again. It's actually the last of the inns that were in downtown. So it's, though it doesn't, it's not a landmark building, though it doesn't appear that anyone's applied for landmark status or historic status. But it's still listed as one of the buildings that got us a historic district. I mean, there's a lot of buildings that, the application was something like, I think, 84 pages long. And there's a number of references to some of the other structures, but the Afton Inn is a pretty key paragraph in that application. How it got to this point, above my pay grade, again, and before my time. But I think it's important, with all the new interest that we have in this, that we take our time and we carefully sort of look at what we've got going on. And depending on, like I said, I don't know what the EDA's process is. I don't know how firm or how locked down this developer is. I don't know any of these things. And again, that's not why I'm here to question, but
Yeah.
at the same time, you are asking me for my opinion on what we should do to further the historic district, maintain the historic district, and going with all this new development and the block grant that goes in line with all of those things.
Yeah.
Our work session is coming to a close.
Hey, can I-
Hmm?
Let the company kind of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I would like to officially adjourn this work session. And we can take a few minutes and then come back at, yeah, for the 7 o'clock official meeting.
The main event.
Yes. I'd like to call to order the Town of Fort Royal Board of Architectural Review meeting for September 12th, 2017. On our agenda, the first item we have is to approve the minutes from August 22nd. Has everyone had a chance to look at those?
Yes.
Motion to approve them.
Okay. Oh, you've already done.
So we need a second? Second?
Okay, all in
So
favor?
moved.
Yeah.
All right. Opposed. For the new business, we don't have any new applications, but we are here for some old business. We have the demolition permit for the Afton Inn. Jeremy, is there anything left to add from your office?
I don't know if they can discuss it. Just
Okay.
Keep in mind in the motion, that it's just an application for the demolition. No plan has been submitted yet at this time. Staff's recommendation in the report was to approve the demolition contingent on those two items, which is one, the permits can only be issued once a plan is reviewed and approved by the Board of Architectural Review, and two, the development surety is put in place before demolition. That's approved and formed by the town attorney in order to guarantee demolition is completed once started.
Okay. So we had our work session earlier. Is there anything left? Questions? Comments?
I think we covered quite a lot during that time.
concerns.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
All right. Me and my big mouth. I would like to make a motion that BAR does not approve the, well, no, wait, we were gonna do this.
That's already,
No, not approve it. We
Oh.
were gonna use it
oh,
to go through, so we can,
we did
Alright.
approve. Okay, well, let's use it.
so if we use the addendum,
So you cancel that motion.
yes, I do,
Cancel that.
because we have not done the process that we have set up.
Okay. All right, well, if we're looking at the agenda, the first question is the building identified as a contributing structure? And during our work session, we clearly, yes, it is an identifying structure, and it's one of the key structures that qualifies us to even have a historic district.
And the location is so prominent.
Structural integrity. Does the building retain structural integrity?
Depends on who you ask.
Commissioner. So we could feasibly find someone who says, yes, it does.
Or that it's salvageable, you know,
Mhm.
no one's gonna pretend it's gonna be easy. But is it doable? I mean, the building we sat in Stanton
Yeah.
says that,
Okay.
so,
Yes, it's got something left.
yeah. Okay.
Feasibility.
On review of the facts of the application, public testimony and town records, what factors limit the renovation of the building instead of demolition as determined by.
So,
The first one, significantly higher cost of new constructions, we're not sure, because the information we've gotten has been contradictory. Well, we know the location is a prime factor, as it's to be retained. Environmental factors, don't know, we don't really have a report on that, do we? Do we have an official report on there being environmental factors that would preclude it?
quite a list of building may have, building might have.
But that's not a
Yeah,
report, that's may.
That's the closest we've seen.
I mean, I can look at a building and say, oh, well, it's before 1970, so I'm sure it has lead paint. I mean, there are certain things that you just
Read
go,
on.
yeah.
Things
So, but we don't have an official
No.
environmental report. So that's a question mark too. And then there was a little bit of a question as far as the next part, which is local, state, or federal regulations. Wasn't there, Aubrey mentioned something about if there any federal money was used and she wasn't sure? Sometimes things are precluded if federal funds are used, and I'm not remembering 100% what it was.
No, this is regulations, I understand.
But there was a regulation that said something about you couldn't tear down or alter without a federal, do you remember?
If federal money had been used, there was a whole different process.
It goes
I'm
to,
not sure.
if the building is a landmark building, it's actually, say a plaqued building. Once you've received funds to renovate a building of that nature, at that point, you're kind of stuck to, and
Keeping it, yeah.
stuck to keeping it.
I think it was similar to that.
This is very similar to that, but
But there was something that, once again, we're not 100% sure if that would, so that would be a question mark as well. Is the building recognized as blighted? At this point in time, yes. But we've got enough that say we can't answer that 100%. So
I
it
think we,
says,
we have some unknown, some confirmed.
but it
What are we
says,
doing in that?
it's, okay, if we're down here, it says if 3 or more boxes are checked, we have to continue. And I definitely have more than 3 checked.
Okay.
All right, number 4 is due diligence. Has the applicant given due diligence, including seeking renovation of the property for an extended period of time, allowing the relocation of the building? That's not feasible in this time, or salvaging portions of the building. Once again, we get back to, there's been such a long and sort of muddy trail as to what's been done, and as I said in the work session, if people knew that they were not having the success that they wanted in marketing this, and also the stories that we've heard of people who said that they had wanted to renovate the building and had not been given permission, I think that throws it into question whether due diligence was in fact, done. So if we get down to that, if we say, and,
I can't confirm yes,
yeah,
Yeah,
so that's where I would do
yeah. So, where does that bring us with all of our checks and our boxes?
Well, according to our own paperwork, then that would leave us at, the BAR does not approve the permit, the demolition. And we've talked, I think we've talked around in circles, we've talked about a number of things with this. There just isn't enough information to make an intelligent decision. And without, again, like I said before, without knowing the process with the EDA and the paper trail and proof of all this kind of stuff, again, this just being a permit, an application, it's a demo, I can't make that decision.
Now, maybe later.
Well, I think there's been a lot of excitement. The Urban Development Partners, they had a fantastic Save the Afton on their website, and through a very quick internet search trying to research what I was going to say at this meeting, it popped up, and I emailed the guys, and it seemed very easy to hear from somebody that knows what they're doing and is interested in doing something with the property. But again, I'm sure there's a vetting process. There's guidelines that the EDA has, and with the city as well, because the same guidelines are the ones that have taken care of the maintenance on the building thus far, I'm assuming. And as far as marketing the building, I can only assume that all the proper paperwork was made to gain some sort of status so that that could be marketed as a historic property, just waiting for the next guy. But again, without seeing the paper trail, if you've been to a trade show, then there's got to be some sort of proof that you did this. So, but again, that's not my job to verify. The EDA did answer the questions that came with our new package. And again, going into building materials and trying to resave flooring joists and nails and all that kind of stuff. Any money or time trying to recapture any of that stuff is a waste of time and money. You know, let's fix up the facade. We're going to build from the inside out anyways. And I say when that all happens, then it's all going to be new construction. So any of the other answers that pertain to not being able to come up with costs on what the electrical, plumbing, mechanical, or what I call the trades. If there's a plan set for this building, it's extremely easy to go through and get a very decent number. And if you can't do that based on your experience, and you can't do that based on knowing, because this is not your specialty, then I can't use what you're telling me to come up with a decision to demo. And again, it's not the politics in it. I don't know any of these people. The EDA has been very good to me. They awarded my company an award So, I mean, as far as what they do, I think that they're doing a strong job at it, but I don't know if this was in their parameters to come up with, but I don't know. But my recommendation, my personal opinion is that it gets shelved, and with all this new interest that's being shown in the building, that maybe we take a different approach to possibly saving the building, and if that doesn't happen, then let's tear it down, build something that looks like it, and go about our business. But until we have more information, I can't make that decision.
Well, our worksheet and our general guidelines, I think, are pointing us
To a decision.
in a clear direction.
Even without the addendum,
Correct, yeah.
even
Our
without
general
this, our
guidelines.
general guidelines clearly point us in the direction of
Same.
trying to save the building. And seeing places like where y'all went a couple weeks ago, and seeing the amount of work that goes into buildings, I think that it should be tabled, not indefinitely. I think it should be tabled with the understanding that if it doesn't pop back up, it needs to be addressed, kind of deal. Let's not table this for 5 years.
Correct.
Let's come up with an action plan to say, okay, well, we've got 6 months, we've got a year, whatever it is, but
But I don't recommend a tabling, so I think that can just be appealed to council.
okay. So then I stick to my opinion and my vote.
Well,
Let's make
get a
a,
motion.
Let's do it, council.
yeah. I would make the motion that the BAR, based on a number of factors that we have discussed in length, vote to decline to approve the demolition permit at this time, and hopefully something will come up. But basically, we're declining approving the motion for demolition.
I second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Are we able to invite people to talk at this point? Or are we done with the public?
Public hearing's closed. It was closed at the last meeting.
Do we have any other?
I have nothing else for tonight.
May I just ask here the information about the potential offer? Is that,
That got emailed
You got mine.
We brought that in.
to Dewey,
okay,
and that goes back to a point I made earlier where I've been approached personally by folks who have said they've tried, and that makes it very hard to
Yeah.
justify.
Yeah, and I've also been talking to Michael the last couple of days
Mm-hmm. I talked
about
to her.
this.
Okay.
all right. Well, hopefully, something will come out of this, some of this new stuff.
Someone like to make a motion to adjourn.
Well, I'd like to make the motion to adjourn.